fire in the room? Is it a ghost? No, it's Saturday Morning Samoflange. Yeah! Hi there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Saturday Morning Samoflange. I'm Benjamin.
I'm Matt.
Come on.
Hey, you know what? We're
gonna caffeine just kicked in.
We're gonna talk cartoon. Yeah, we got some Coke Spiced.
Coke Spiced.
Who spiced my Coke?
This episode is not sponsored by Coca-Cola Spiced. Raspberry Spiced Coke.
Raspberry Spiced Coke. They thought that'd be the next best thing.
I'm really surprised. This is more delicious than I would have given it credit for.
It is good. It is good. It is good. It's tasty.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this so far.
The Super One had the 5 for $4 each, or something like that, or five for $5 each. So I bought a lot, and I could not think of one more I wanted. And I looked up and down the aisles because I knew it was four for $5 each.
Sure.
But Megan likes Pepsi. I got me a RC Cola, which, by the way, that one went first.
What do you mean?
The RCs.
Everyone drank the RCs. Everyone drank the RCs?
Yeah. My wife drank the RCs first. That was mine.
Well, they wanted to get the garbage out of the way.
Oh, man.
They needed to clear room in the fridge for the good stuff.
And there was only one 12-pack of RCs at the time. And then I got 7-Up. I got the 7-Up.
Wow, you have horrible taste in soda. RC and 7-Up?
I love
when
RC Cola.
Sprite and Coke are on the shelf?
No, I love RC Cola. And I do not like Sprite. And 7-Up is good. And I don't drink 7-Up all the time, but I do like 7-Up. Remember that was the Uncola? That was the Spot?
The cool Spot.
And I
with
drank
the sunglasses.
I bought a 12-pack a long time ago, like 2 years ago. I was like, oh, these are refreshing. And I liked them. It reminded me of my childhood. That's
the commercial that they need to build the marketing campaign around. Just a dude going, oh, that's refreshing.
It's refreshing. I did. But then for 4th of July, I got the deal. And I said, well, let me get 7-Up. My brother will be there. And, of course, he tried one. He's like, I remember these.
The 4th of July
And we just did a little sipping on the 4th of July. Well, the other one, I could not figure out what I wanted. So I ended up I said, oh, look, they have the spiced in a can. Let me try it. Yeah. So I got it, and but the thing is, I wish there was a second RC Cola now. But there's only one RC Cola, man. That was beat to heck, but I took it anyway. Those things are rare, hard to find.
So, was there any product placement in cartoons in the 80s, 90s?
Not during the cartoon, but
you don't think so? I mean, they were
not during the cartoon.
Like, because movies, like Back to the Future and all these others, they had tons of product placement in them back in the 80s in the day. And I'm assuming, given the topic of today's episode, that we're going to be talking about some cartoons that are from the 80s and 90s. That's my bold prediction, and maybe not so bold. But the product placement didn't happen during the cartoons because they probably would face litigation or something. You think?
I'm doing these in release order, by the way.
Oh, fun.
I've decided not to do the top 5.
Not to do a top 5.
There is 5, as there should be. But top 5 times cartoons raise the bar. And to be honest, I think it's only been risen 5 times for me.
Oh, my word. Wow. How interesting.
And what I mean by that, there's been tons of good cartoons.
Sure.
I mean, our cartoon foundation is Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Is, a bunch of the older stuff, the way cartoons were, the Smurfs,
right. Because cartoons
lot of the 80s.
started, and then we've talked about this before on the show, that they were just glorified toy commercials for the most part.
The 80s were just great for that.
That's what I'm saying. So that was the product placement there for the toys, but not for necessarily like soda or something like that.
And do you have a top 5, by the way?
I have 5 on this list, and I want to talk about, but I'm not as versed in the cartoons as you have been, because you, A, have kids, and B, you're more of a man-child than I am, and you watch a lot of cartoons.
So I'll talk about this. And I have rewatched 2 of these. One I'm currently watching. Another one I haven't seen in forever, but I would watch again. And the other one I might not watch, but me and my buddy were talking about, we did believe that this one raised the bar.
Wow.
For us, though I probably wouldn't. Okay, so
I'm really curious about this.
The first one is DuckTales.
Yes.
DuckTales.
How much crossover do we have? Though we didn't, because we've already got one.
We already got one. I didn't know if we would.
DuckTales is my number 5, actually.
I will say 2 more. Then I'll be bold.
Oh, 2. So you're gonna go 3.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's not a bad prediction with this list. So I'll go. Ooh, man. I know you have such eclectic taste.
You can go 2. 2's the safe route, but I can't play safe
But
today.
yeah, if we go 4, that's even more bold. But I don't think that's possible.
4?
I don't think that's possible. Given the weird cartoons that you know about and all the weird stuff, I'm gonna have to go with 2.
All right, that's fine.
So DuckTales, we know is a crossover for sure.
DuckTales was the first time, and I think I know the reason why.
The soundtrack.
There was a world that we were familiar with.
That's
that
right.
They played around in.
Yeah.
And it was a world that you knew who Gizmo Duck was.
Yeah, right.
You knew Abigail and her nanny. You knew, Magica De Spell. You knew the Beagle Boys were always going to jail and getting broken out by Ma Beagle.
Ma Beagle.
And it was this cast of characters like an Andy Griffith show. You knew everyone. It was a small town.
That's a really good comparison.
I don't think. I mean, you look at stuff back in the day. Bugs Bunny was put in different scenes.
Yeah.
Roadrunner and Coyote were always in the desert. But the thing is...
But this one I have a memory of Scrooge McDuck or maybe Huey, Dewey, and Louie like rolling out a map of Duckburg. And then you knew...
basically could.
You knew where everyone lived.
Yeah.
Like this dude controlled the northern part of Duckburg and, whatever else. And Scrooge McDuck's tower was on the westerns or something like maybe in the middle.
And you knew where Gloom Gold lived on the other side of town and stuff like that. So, I mean, I felt like that was the first... Everything took place in the world, but that was the first time world building. And then, of course, you had tons of
building. That's
world
a great,
building.
yeah.
Then suddenly everyone had world building. Now, I'm not saying that this was the first one to do that. I'm just saying it's the first one that made me perk up and notice that there's this world. And I felt like we weren't, even though the episodes didn't continue from. Well, sometimes they did, but the thing is, though, you stayed in that same world. You knew where so and so was. Like, I can't remember who the little guy was that Ratchet was the guy at the wrench or whatever.
Yeah,
the dorky looking one. Mm-hmm. But his place was always a junk heap.
Yep.
And the Huey, Dewey, and Louie would always visit him. It was the same house. He lived in the same house. Gloom Gold had the same front desk.
Yep.
Magica De Spell had the same black.
And they would sometimes reference what they had done prior.
Sometimes they would, but the thing is, it was just that familiarity. You'd go back to these recurring villains, these things, and it was just a little bit different. To where, and the reason why, I mean, Super Friends, they always stay in the Justice League, but they were always flying around. Every episode took place somewhere else.
But I like
this took place in the land of
what you're
Duckburg.
saying about Looney Tunes. It was Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner just always on a road
tunes.
Somewhere. Yeah,
Daffy Duck and Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Daffy Duck and Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Daffy Duck,
just random.
I'm not dogging that.
No,
that's fine.
That's not what we're talking about.
Now we have our own.
Now you've raised the bar into a whole world and emboldened a franchise,
And I'll be honest, life is like a hurricane in Duckburg, or so I hear. They must be off the coast of Louisiana.
That's it. Yeah. That's where Duckburg is.
That's where Duckburg is. Or was.
Yeah, or was, right.
All right,
it was the magical coast of Atlantis somewhere.
So he cheated and had one each. So
maybe that's the show of Atlantis. That's where Atlantis is. It was actually Duckburg because that's where all the gold is buried.
After the hurricane came through from Duckburg. All right, so where's the next one? What's the next one?
Well, I wanted to my honorable mention 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, please go ahead.
Well, I mean, I said I started with.
If you have 5, just give me one.
I just have a memory of watching Smurfs is the thing because Smurfs, I hated it. And I remember watching, that was really the first cartoon that I watched because I was born in 79. And I remember being young enough that my older sisters, who were much older than me, I was transfixed by the TV. I have a very early memory of this. And I must have had this scrunched up look on my face with my eyebrows down and and just like this terrible look like I just pooped my pants or something. And I remember my sisters laughing. I almost smurfed myself because I was watching this cartoon. I was like, what the heck is this? Like my little kid brain was thinking, this is really dumb. And just not being interested, but fascinated by the animation, right? I was fascinated by the cartoon aspect of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was fascinated by the magic aspect of it, like Gargamel and all that, him doing his evil spells and stuff. Like, that was interesting, but I remember for even my young brain processing it like, this is trash. I hate this. And then my sisters laughing at it. I didn't like any of it, but I liked the animation, the way it moved on the screen. The colors,
smooth, the colors, very bright,
very childlike.
I like that.
I just have a very vague memory of that. So my first one that raised the bar for me was the very first one because it was really my first introduction to.
I thought about doing exactly
cartoons.
as you did until I remembered a fifth one.
Oh, okay.
But I thought about doing just as you said.
So Smurfs would be my fifth, and
That's
4 would be DuckTales then.
Okay.
And I kind of threw around Tailspin and Chippendale and Rescue Rangers and that kind of stuff.
But DuckTales came first.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, one of mine. So now you had 5
That's
and 4.
5 and 4.
Then okay,
What's
so
your number 4?
My number 4. I think the next time the bar ranged was an unknown show called Eek the Cat.
Eat the cat.
Eek.
This is why I didn't go high with 4 or 5.
This is the one I knew you didn't have. But Eek the cat wasn't necessarily special. It was a purple cat who was in love with this big fat pink cat. There's Sharky the dog who looked like a dog shark. Really weird cartoon. But they had a side cartoon with it, like Garfield and Friends always did want the farm animals. They had a side one called Terrible Thunder Lizards.
Wow.
Terrible Thunder Lizards was a brontosaurus, a stegosaurus, and a
Triceratops.
Triceratops.
I'm already a fan.
And they're dressed up in commando gear.
Talk about esoteric.
Yes.
What is going on?
And they're trying to hunt down mankind and make them
imagine everyone
extinct.
listening to this podcast
They're trying to
looking
make them
up what
extinct.
esoteric means right now.
Yes, they're trying to. Yeah. And these two cavemen, one is very annoying, and the other one's just like so annoyed with the smaller one. It's the skinny. Tall, skinny, short, fat.
Yeah.
Short, fat is the annoying one who's always talking, hey, Bill, hey, Bill.
You're Abbott and Costello a bit?
It's almost a little bit like that. But he's always creating something. And, of course, we know what it will be in the future.
Sure.
But, I call it the oven. What do we need an oven for? We just cook it over a fire.
Yeah.
You don't bake it. Here, it bakes in here for 25 degrees. See, you can't even turn it. He's got this Flintstone technology that he's stressing out. Well, by accident, they always fend off the terrible thunder. They don't even know the terrible thunder lizards are hunting them.
Okay.
And the terrible thunder lizards had a lot of just that sarcastic humor that you, as a 14, 15, you got, and you were like, oh, that was funny. Oh, that was funny too. And a lot of they talk about, how the guards guarding something, playing cards, they never hear. You hear something?
Yeah, right.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
Go back to playing cards.
Right.
And they're sneaking down from the roof is what they're doing. And then they make another really loud noise. They went, are you sure? I thought I heard something. The guard goes, no.
No.
And then
play your cards.
Something else happens, and they just, all this sand falls through the hole and just covers them in sand. He went, did you feel that? He went, will you just shut up and play cards? and the guy's even covered in sand.
Yeah.
So the guards are just, you just kind of got, they were just
that's great.
Comically oblivious to what was going on. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
And there were several moments like that were just like they're playing, the dinosaurs playing it straight. This is do or die. They're like Bill Paxton aliens. We've got to stop these humans, man. Get a grip on yourself. The humans are everywhere. They're going to get a grip on yourself, soldier. They had these things called bee bombs. They'd throw grenades, and they were just a bunch of bees.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a beehive. And the beehive would explode.
A bee bomb.
And bees would go everywhere. I mean, just all these wild things. And it was so unique. And that was the first thing that, comedy was growing up.
I just love the idea of this. This was in the 80s, I'm assuming.
Late 90s, early 90s.
Early 90s, and then you think about the terminology of the time was an atomic bomb was commonly referenced as the A bomb.
Yeah.
So then some writer's room somewhere, they're like, what about the B bomb?
The B bomb.
Let's make it actual bees.
That's what it's bees, like a hive of bees that they throw.
And then they just giggle and then they add it in the show.
They're little. They look like grenades on dinosaurs.
Yeah, I want to be in that room and listen to that.
But they had a lot of fun with the show. They had a lot of fun with the show.
That's great.
But anyway, all right, so number 3.
Man, that was such a good choice, like random, and I hope somebody else has seen that show.
I hope so too.
Comments about it.
This is all for naught.
Number 3 for me is X-Men, because it was dark, it was kind of gritty, it had that amazing soundtrack kind of thing. But here's what I wrote: is that this is not the '80s happiness that I was used to from He-Man and our beloved Thundercats, from which the title of this podcast is taken. But like everything resolved in Thundercats by the 30-minute episode timer, right?
True.
Everything resolved in He-Man. Skeletor was always defeated. The Care Bears always saved the rainbows, and the Gummy Bears always got the pot of gold or whatever they were doing by the end of the episode. X-Men didn't necessarily have that resolution at the end, and if it did, it was hard fought and a challenge. It was the first time that raised the bar for me as far as storytelling goes in a cartoon. I was like, it doesn't have to be a silly 30-minute ramp up to a horrible degree and then resolved immediately with a magic wand or something like that, or some dastardly deed is not being performed, and then the villain isn't going off into the night saying "curse you, gummy bears" or whatever. And X-Men didn't end like that, and it didn't have those feelings at all. And so it was good. It was a different type of storytelling to me.
It was episodic.
It was episodic.
There was more drama.
That's
wasn't
it.
just
That's
mindless.
it. It had drama, and
Yes.
I had never seen like real like drama happening
Yes.
in a cartoon before.
The love triangle between
Love
Logan,
triangles. What are you
Cyclops,
talking about? Like, are you kidding me?
And not silly ones.
Not
It
silly
was
love
everything was
triangles.
playing it straight.
Exactly.
The
And-
comedy, there were comedic moments,
Yep.
but it wasn't a comedy.
So this probably wouldn't be chronologically, or whatever, because this was more this was in like 90s, right? Mid 90s when X-Men came out. But that one was one that immediately came to mind whenever you presented this topic, is that, well, it had to be, X-Men has to be on this list somewhere, because that blew my mind as far as what a story could be and what a storytelling could be.
And funny you say that.
Oh, is that our second crossover?
Number 3 was the first time I ever saw that done. Early 90s.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
Batman.
Batman, yes. Which I never really watched Batman, the animated series. It
Wow.
wasn't on, and I
Wow.
would have totally watched it. I absolutely would have watched it.
That was where it started, and X-Men took it to a further degree because they had... And X-Men, in a way, I think that it started with Batman.
Chronologically, Batman was before X-Men anyway.
Yeah, chronologically, it started there. But X-Men built upon that with a cast of characters that interacted with each other.
Instead of just Batman.
Batman was just Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, he
fighting
interacted
off
with
the different
Alfred,
villains or whatever. Yeah,
but
and
whatever
Alfred
happened to the villain in the last episode
was where he was
when
in
they came back in season 2. That stuff had still happened.
So-and-so was in prison, or so-and-so was out here, and that kind of thing. Yeah, okay.
Clayface escapes, and now he really wants to. We had the origin, but now he really... And it was darker.
You had a reason for hating Batman
and
after
it was
that.
made for teenagers. Those cartoons... And so was X-Men. X-Men
That's
was
the
made
difference.
for the older kid.
That's the game-raising thing, is that it was made for an older kid.
We're going for 13 to 16
right.
to watch this. And I'll be honest, I was that age when these were coming out.
Yeah.
And I was even X-Men I was hooked into.
Totally.
Hooked into. And they were making... The cartoons in the 90s were aging with the 80s kids.
Yeah, they did. And they were smart to do that.
Something that has never been done.
No, they were
They've
super
never
smart to
tried
do that.
again.
Right.
Because there is a market for
There's
that.
a demographic
There are
now.
adult cartoons now,
Right.
older cartoons now. But back then there
But
wasn't.
when it was first happening...
So mainstream cartoons had to age with their kid.
Because
Didn't
I
have
feel
to,
like
but did.
the writers, the animators, the people making these shows, the producers, the studios were also aging. They wanted to do stuff that interested them as well.
Yeah.
So I can imagine drawing Smurfs for 30 years would make you crazy.
Yeah, and they want... Yeah, exactly. They wanted to age the storyline too. But I believe Batman... in my opinion, Batman did it first. But,
No, that's totally cool. I didn't go chronological at all with this.
okay, so it looks like unless you get one in the next 2, none of us are going to win.
Okay.
Because I don't think I'm not going to win. I'm out. If
You're
Batman's
out.
not there, so you go
No,
with
Batman's
number...
not there. So you
then
want me
I'm
to go
out.
with my number 2?
Yeah.
Or my number 3, rather.
Yeah. No. How
1,
many do you
2,
have?
3, 4, 5, 6. So this
Whoops. Okay, give 2 then, because I'm
Yeah.
on 3.
I had my...
So what was
one.
number
I'm sorry.
3, and then what was number
Teenage
2?
Mutant Ninja Turtles. And here's the reason why. It was because of the level of obsession with TMNT. Not just necessarily from me,
Oh, it started the craze.
but it started the craze.
It started the craze.
And
yeah.
TMNT was the first time I watched a cartoon at home, in my tiny little home in the country with 3 channels, and nobody else around. And then I went out into the world, and everybody I knew had seen the same cartoon I had. Like, it was unbelievable. The shoelaces, the cereal boxes, the super saturated market for a cartoon was beyond my imagination. Now, I had He-Man underwear growing up, as a child. And so there was always marketing. There was always products out there. You could get the cereal, He-Man cereal, whatever. But I mean, TMNT raised the whole new level of marketing. It was, everything was branded with TMNT. The air you breathed had TMNT on it. Like, it was unbelievable. And not just that, but it felt like every kid I knew watched it. And at first, you didn't really talk about what happened on He-Man or Thundercats or whatever else was before, but it just felt like every single person I knew watched and loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Boys and girls alike.
I'm booting out my
You're
last
booting
pick.
out? Are you changing your list?
Yeah, I'm booting out. I had a newer cartoon.
Yeah.
Called Invincible. That's really, really highbrow, very violent, Not non-anime
Raise the bar.
storytelling.
Ooh, okay. I feel like I remember this.
It was on Amazon Prime. But anyway,
Okay.
I'm booting that one out now. Booting that one out because, Tim, you're right.
It was so game-changing.
No. What happened? It birthed a franchise.
It really did.
I mean, that was the beginning. The comic books, no one knew.
No.
That cartoon spawned movies,
video games,
shows, both live action and cartoon.
Everything.
It has not slowed down.
No,
it has
it's
not
still
died.
going.
It is that was the start of a franchise.
Yep.
That was Star Wars: A New Hope.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
It was the dawn of a franchise. That has been more dominant than any other. I mean, you talk Thundercats, you talk whatever.
Those
Voltron,
were popular.
Those have their niches, but nothing as dominant as the Turtles. That is a game changer.
And when I got back from New Orleans, or when I got back from Australia, I went to New Orleans Comic-Con this year, and all 4 Ninja Turtles, the original voices, were there. And I got to go to their panel and listen to them talk, and then I got to meet them. And I talked about this on the podcast, didn't I? About having the voice of Donatello hanging out with me, and he invited me back to his house in California and everything else. But those guys, they said a number. It was funny because they kind of fell into their roles because the guy who, Leonardo's who I'm talking about, but the guy, Leonardo was my turtle, always. Kim was Donatello, and Brad was Michelangelo for us and everything else, and it was great. So I hung out with Leonardo a lot and talked to him, and then he told a story about how, like, in the story, he used the B word, as in billions of dollars. He knew
billions
how much money Turtles has made since they started it, because the question inevitably comes up, which I loathe this question, and here's a call out to every reporter in the entertainment industry. For the love of God, will you stop asking stars of big international franchises, did you know how big this was going to be when you got cast?
Oh, boy.
Of course they didn't. Will you stop asking such a stupid question? This is a multi-billion, this is the Lord of the Rings, or this is Star Trek, or something massive.
Such a dumb question.
And these reporters who have nothing else, what do they think they're doing? Just, did you know how big this was going to be whenever you first started? Of course they didn't. And it was wonderful to listen to all 4 Turtles. They're really good friends, first of all. They have such good chemistry together. They talked about how in the booth, because they did a lot of the villains and the heroes, and they did a lot of the side characters as well. So they were doing everything, just making it up on the spot. And because, like, Shredder was also Leonardo and something else, and they did Krang and all the other good ones, and it was beautiful. But not only did they not have any idea how big it was going to be, but just how desperately they wished they had a fraction of a percent of even how much this show has made.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even
definitely.
just a 100th of a 1% of the billions of dollars that this franchise has brought in. And they knew the number. Like, whoever was telling that story knows the B word number that it was. It was insane. Yeah. Because you just think about that and all the money you miss out on when they probably got paid $50 per episode or something back in the 80s to do it. Because they didn't have any idea.
That's a good pick.
But by the second season, they were locked in, I believe. Yeah. So, but even still.
Good one.
TMNT was definitely a massive game changer.
Yeah.
And then to the
franchise.
Joy of meeting them in New Orleans after all those years, and to hear the joy they still have for the characters, the love they still have for those characters, and the true joy they have in meeting the fans of those voices and those characters.
You're right.
It was so delightful.
Keep going.
I was happy about it.
Number 2 now?
Number 2 for me is Transformers, because as a kid, that was one of my earliest ones as a kid, and that was the one I first got really hooked on. Because also that one had a bit of a story to it too, a continuous story that, because they had the lead up, not as much as Batman or something like that, but there was a world building kind of thing. You knew about where they came from, like a Krypton sort of situation, and you knew that there were pieces of here and there, and you knew that like Ultron or
Megatron.
Like, not just Megatron. I'm not talking about Megatron and Optimus Prime. They were the head honchos of the Autobots and Decepticons, of course. But remember the big World Eater one? That was Ultron, wasn't it? Or what? Not Ultron.
Omnicron. I think, anyway,
Unicron.
Unicron.
Yeah, and so like Unicron showing up was this big thing, and then the side split into something like a spinoff That was the first time I'd ever seen a spin-off of a cartoon. So when the Dinobots got introduced, when I was a huge Dinobot fan, and when I was a kid, I knew all the dinosaurs back and forwards, and I could spell them every which way and knew everything about them. But the fact that you had Dinobots, and then you had these other ones that could happen, and it was so big that it just grew and grew and grew and grew and expanded. That blew my mind.
Transformers was the best door-to-door salesman
Yeah.
that the 80s ever had.
Without question.
Hey kids, here's an episode about the Constructicons.
Yes, the Constructicons.
You can buy them now in stores. They
Yeah.
can form this big one.
Yeah.
Oh, how'd you like that? You like the Dinobots?
Yeah.
Okay, you'll love the Insecticons.
And the Insecticons.
Oh, yeah, you gotta get the Insecticons. Okay, Soundwave has more tapes now, so you can buy some more Soundwave tapes. Okay, hold on. We just wiped out all of our... They killed off the characters in the movie because they wanted to make a new wave of toys.
Which is wild. That's wild.
And then now we want to do them for animals. Beast Wars.
Beast Wars.
So, I mean, it's the best salesman.
Yep. And
the
prior to
80s
that,
ever
it was
had.
the same thing. It was He-Man episodic, but also sort of like Batman. He-Man would just fight a new villain, and then they would sell the villain toy, Or He-Man would fight a mutated version of Skeletor, and, something like that.
This one introduced toy lines.
Yes.
Toy lines.
Absolutely.
Not just characters. Toy lines.
Mega million
coming
toy
in,
lines.
And they stayed into the storyline until their toy was discontinued.
And by the end of it, I think I was more of a Dinobot fan than I was a Transformer fan.
Yes.
I had more Dinobots than anything.
Dinosaurs and Transformers go hand in hand.
It was
Get at
priceless.
it. No brainer.
No brainer.
Number one that forever changed cartoons. The last big game changer for me, The Tick.
The Tick?
The Tick.
What? That's like a blip in my memory.
The Tick.
Tell me why.
Was very early, highbrow comedy.
Yes.
It was not for kids.
I remember I didn't get it.
It wasn't for adults.
Like, what's happening here?
It wasn't for adults.
Yeah.
It was for the teenagers.
Yeah.
To laugh at the silliness, quirkiness, but the wittiness. The wittiness
It was
that
clever.
was The Tick. It was very clever. Its humor was very clever. People appreciated for that. There was strong continuity. That poor Moon. Chairface tried to write his name in the moon, C-H-A, before Tick stopped him. Yeah. The rest of the season, it's C-H-A. Then that other guy comes and takes a bite out of the moon. Tick defeats him. Now it's C-H-A with a bite out of the moon for the rest of the show.
Continuity, right. That's great.
But that's the ongoing gag is what it was. And it was just wonderful. It was just wonderful. If you got it, great. If
so
you
every
didn't
time you
understand
saw
the moon joke,
like it would crack you up.
It would not be in the center of the shot.
It's
It'd
just
be,
there.
when they're traveling, the moon's out there and they'd pass it by. And the thing is, though, they don't care if you got the inside joke. They were going to put it there for them.
They didn't pander to you, though.
That was such a good cartoon. Really raised the bar overall for me.
That is a big game changer. I agree with that. No,
right,
I remember The Tick, but I didn't watch it that much.
Watch it. That's fine. That's fine.
It was good, though.
What is your number one?
My number one is not necessarily...
Not necessarily number one.
My number one.
Timeline.
Yeah, right. But I think it's the one that changed the game. And so
Game changer.
I'm not a huge fan of this cartoon, but it changed the game. So it's on brand with this episode. Okay. But South Park was when I first...
I'd say that's a game changer.
Nothing ever had been done like that before. And not that I had seen. And maybe not as nearly as mainstream. Beavis and Butthead did its own thing. But South Park really elevated it to a whole other level.
South Park was a college movement, a college kid movement. Now that you're out of high school, here comes your next.
It's like the guys that were writing He-Man when we were little now are doing South Park.
You're in the late 90s. You've already graduated.
Yeah.
Here's your South Park.
Because Trey Parker grew up watching He-Man and Transformers and DuckTales and everything else.
And so now
he's about our age.
The animation is important.
Yeah.
But the animation has its style.
Yep.
And you appreciate it for that style, that
it was
choppy style.
It was the irreverence that, for me, was the game changer. Like, I was both horrified and intrigued and laughing my ass off at the same time.
Yeah.
And through the whole thing. And it was just so wild. And I remember I went to my friend Caleb Lucell's house, and he was like, hey, you want to watch South Park? And I was like, what are you even talking about right now? And we watched the first 12 episodes in a row before...
I didn't know what it meant either.
Before we knew what the word binge watching meant, we absolutely binge watched the first 12 episodes of South Park, and I was amazed. What's also amazing, and I've said this before, is that I watched those first 12 episodes of South Park when I was probably, I don't know, 16, I guess, maybe when it came out. Who cares? But the point is that South Park's been on for however many years, and I still kind of get all the jokes. Just because they've recycled the same jokes from the first 12 episodes
if it's not
for years and
broke,
years. And it's not broke, they didn't fix it, and they sure didn't. But that was just such a game changer. And again, suddenly everybody I knew, 16, sometimes you're too cool for cartoons, but everybody was watching South Park. Everybody knew about South Park. Everybody knew the joke, oh my God, they've killed Kenny. Suddenly everybody got that joke. Or you could say it anywhere, and people knew what it was. And it was amazing.
Everyone got it. Everyone knew them. Icons.
But I'm not a huge fan. I don't watch it all the time. But it absolutely was a game changer.
Hardly at all anymore. But yeah, I agree.
So that was my number one, just for
good picks.
Yeah,
good picks. Hey, folks, game-changing cartoons.
I feel like we left something out, man.
Cartoons that raise. I'm sure we did. Cartoons that raise the bar. Agree with our picks. Disagree with our picks. Because I'm positive too. There may be some things we.
I wonder how generational this is too. People who were born in the 2000s, are they going to be or the 90s? They're going to talk about Kim Possible.
They could be talking about other ones. Yeah, Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, something like that.
Stuff like that.
I'm really curious.
I'm really interested here.
I'm curious if people that are born in the 90s and 2000s ever go back and watch shows from our generation. Like, do you go back? Because if we go back, it's stupid to us. Like the old Looney Tunes and the old Captain Caveman. Like, I can't watch those. It's Smurfs, for instance. It's so bad that I just don't get any enjoyment out of the 60s cartoons, the old ones.
Well, see, that's exactly what I want to talk about next Saturday
morning.
Samoflange. Dun, dun, dun!
To be continued next time on Saturday
morning.
Samoflange.